People who like to explore abandoned buildings. What was the biggest fuck this? I'm out moment you had while exploring, part 2. It wasn't abandoned. Exploring an abandoned prison, part of the ceiling collapsed. It didn't hit me, but it was close enough to knock me over. I guess junkies used it as a place to shoot up because I fell on an old needle. I got tested to make sure I didn't get anything from it, but it scared me enough to stay away from abandoned buildings to this day. I was walking up the porch and noticed that what I thought were wind chimes were actually multiple knives tied to string hanging from the ceiling. A few of them caked with blood. I was attacked by a homeless dude. I walked into one of the rooms and a man tackled me. Then got off and helped me up while telling me how much I scared him. Exploring an old trailer that had been left abandoned for years. I found a little stone statue of Jesus at the base of a large, dead tree. I squat down and touched it, causing it to instantly crumble from the pressure. Felt like I'd activated some ancient curse. When I was in elementary school, there was a small abandoned cabin located at the back in a somewhat wooded area. The rumor was someone had died there, but no one knew for sure. A bunch of us kids decided to explore the place. Saw through the window what looked like a woman had hung herself. Noped out so fast. Place was torn down eventually. Wasps. Got into an old cement factory with a few friends 15 years ago. No smartphone. No fancy gadgets. Just a halogen flashlight and each other. We walked around for hours. The basement was flooded and the water crystal clear. Everything heavy still in place. Surreal. Climbed the staircase at one end of the factory up to a room that had huge motors inside. Black filthy windows and a weird smell. Started to walk into the darkest area of the rooms up there and the smell got worse and worse. Found a smashed window pane for some air and light. Shouted for my mates to come to me so we could share the flashlight and look around properly. First mate comes up and freezes. Second mate, with the light already on and aimed straight at me, gagging and covering his face. Pigeons hanging from the walls and carcasses on the floor. A huge symbol scratched and painted on wall. The windows black, probably from the blood of these poor birds. We noped out of that room pretty quick. Fuck knows who had been there messing with birds like that. Turns out the smell was likely death and rotting animals. We were exploring a swampy area near my old house. We crawled into a drainage pipe that led through the ground to a pretty isolated area, maybe a block or two away. The area was like a little enclave and it was totally beautiful. Except for a couch with bag of sex toys and women's clothes. I don't recall anything seeming to explicitly suggest that the owner might return soon. But we got that heebie-jeebie feeling that someone was either there or would be back soon. The run back through the pipe was terrifying. When I was in high school, me and a bunch of friends piled into my friend's car and drove up to some abandoned houses near our town. The houses were bought by a big company to tear them down to build more office space. But the project was abandoned and the houses were never torn down. They had been empty for about 20 years at that point. I really didn't want to go. But I had just gotten into the cool crowd and I wanted to fit in. So I went along. The houses were falling apart. Covered in graffiti and trash. And it was dead silent and pitch dark out. The only light we had were our cell phone flashlights. Most of us were terrified. But a few of the older boys were being rowdy and making a lot of noise. I told them to shut up because I didn't want the cops to come. And I knew this was also a hot spot for squatters and I didn't want us to get robbed and slash or murdered. The whole time I kept feeling like I was hearing shit behind me. But I tried to brush it off thinking it was just my imagination. About the third house we went to, I found an old Victorian doll covered in dust and cobwebs on the staircase. I don't know why. But I picked it up to look at it. It was creepy as all fuck. One eye missing and matted hair and torn clothing. I quickly put it down and walked away to continue exploring. A few minutes later, in dead silence besides our footsteps creaking on the old wooden floors, we heard, "Mama," in a soft child's voice, coming from the doll. I looked at my friends. They looked at me. We hightailed it back to the car and sped away. Never went back after that. Edit. This was either a doll with a pull string or you pressed its belly to talk. I don't remember. But no one was anywhere near the doll when it went off. I don't really believe in ghosts. So my logical mind wants to think that I probably just knocked it when I put it down, or it was displaced a bit with all of us walking around the house. But it was still creepy as fuck nonetheless. And yes, I am female. Which made it 10x creepier. Walked into an abandoned hotel building in the desert near Las Vegas. I was just entering the building when a huge white face popped out at me. Looked very strange. Like a phantom with dramatic black eyes and a tiny mouth. Then it came at me very quickly but silently. Turns out it was a very large, very scared owl defending its territory. Nope the fuck out of there fast. We were finally going to explore the second floor. We went up the outside stairs. For context, it was an abandoned house, not a building, and we were facing the brick-sealed entrance which had a hole where a person could fit. Out of nowhere, my mate's phone started playing loud music and he quickly turned it off. We looked at each other and laughed, not knowing what would follow. The second after, we were filled with relief. From the other side of the entrance, we heard a cough and a door creaking. My mate just turned to me and said, "Run." And we did. Afterwards, we concluded it was probably just a homeless person living there. But we were never completely sure. My brother-in-law was exploring an abandoned house that had been razed so only the basement remained open to the air. There was a mantle over the still remaining fireplace, although the chimney was gone. On the mantle were a series of Polaroid photos. The Instamatic kind. When he walked over to look at the photos, he discovered they were all photos of the backs of people looking at photos on the mantle. He does like to tell stories, but that one really got to me. A Bodwand house in Italy had the base of a black marble pillar in the middle of the room that stood about chest high. Charred animal bones on the top. Scared this hell out of 8-year-old me. Abandoned insane asylum on Long Island. Giant place with plenty of history. My friend and I were joking about getting haunted by lobotomized ghosts. We go in and start taking photos. One of the first shots came out with what seriously looked like a little orb dude. We decided to stop making fun of the undead. But we did forge ahead. It was very creepy. Especially when we found the morgue. We found a stack of old computers in an abandoned house on the outskirts of our town. When we opened one of the computers, it was filled with nothing but LDP0RN. 3 of the guys I was with ditched because they didn't want to get involved or convicted. I just called the police and they took them. There was a good 6 to 7 terabytes. Truly disgusting people in this world. Bit more context, I was 13 when this happened and had no idea what to do or who to call. I realized that I should have called child services. Some kind of child abuse hotline, or reported to the police anonymously, but I was a young kid and was never told what to do in a situation like that. All I knew that it was wrong and some kind of authority had to be called, and 911 was the only one I knew of. When I was in high school, we went into an abandoned farmhouse to explore. It was really run down and everything was faded, weathered, and broken. Upstairs there was a locked room and of course we broke in. That room was pristine wallpaper with pink roses. Perfect furniture. And the bed was even made with a frilly pink bedspread. Came very close to a black widow spider and noped the fuck out. Bats. Nothing exciting. Just a shitload of bats and a ration fear of rabies. Late to the party, but so this'll probably get buried, but anyway. When I was a kid, maybe as young as 7, me and about 5 friends explored the abandoned flat behind the playground. We were going room to room and were in the hallway when suddenly a burglar-looking guy jumped out from the door. Wearing a balaclava and everything. Pointing a huge gun at us. We ran away screaming. Later turned out that was just a bunch of teenagers playing some sort of CS:GO in real life. Imagine thinking you're about to surprise your buddy but running into 5 little girls instead. Abandoned office complex. 30 stories high and still semi-furnished. All floors open for exploration. I left when I realized how much asbestos there was everywhere. Exploring an abandoned coal mine when the battery on my phone died, which I was using as a torch. Had to find our way back out in the pitch black. This is not scary, but it's interesting story. My friend was walking in the forest and found old house. When he moved some stuff, the ceiling broke and old German light machine gun fell down. I was walking along the Horseshoe Lake path with my dad. About a quarter of the way in is the ruins of a house. Barely anything remains. Only the foundation and the fireplace. Also a chunk of the chimney a few meters away. Pretty cool and barely creepy. The house was abandoned after CO2 gas started leaking from underneath the lake, and you can see it in a patch of dead trees by the parking lot. It's not dangerous for hikers and only could be concerning to small children or dogs. However, my dad and I discovered, a bit off the trail, a large circular foundation for something. It's really unusual because this is in the middle of thick woods, so there's no point for the existence of a silo or storage space for grain, usually circular buildings. Here's a picture I took. https://old.reddit.com/r/architecture/comments/ios-r5/any_ideas_as_any_what_this_is_for Not an abandoned building, but a new fishing spot on a part of a river that I hadn't used before. Hopped a short spot to get to a small island and started noticing some blood trails leading towards the fishing area. There were also some larger animal tracks mixed in on the muddy path, but they weren't identifiable due to overlapping tracks. Upon making it to the edge of the island, I saw multiple small effigies made from small animal bones. That's when I decided to leave. Thanks for watching.